This video I'll be talking to you about grammatical structure in English. Now, for those of you, whether you're preparing for WAEC examination, for JAM examination, for NECO examination, and even international examination, believe me, this topic is very important for you because it forms the foundation of English language. So without wasting much time, let's delve into the matter at hand. Now, grammatical structure is basically about how your grammar is formed, and your grammar forms out of five major parts. Your five major parts of your grammar are your morpheme. Your morpheme is your first major part of grammar. Let's call it morpheme. M-O-R-P-H-E-M-E. Morpheme. Then your second major part of grammar is your word. W-O-R-D. Then your third major part of grammar is your phrase. P-H-R-A-S-E. The fourth major part of grammar is your clause. The fifth major part of your grammar is your sentence. Now, I will explain these five major parts of grammar, so stay attentive and follow me. Now, your morpheme is basically the simplest and the most basic part of your grammar. And your morpheme is the part of your grammar that cannot be divided into another different parts. It cannot be divided into simple parts. So those of you that are science students, you probably heard of matter, right? You probably heard of elements. Let me delve a little out of English and go to chemistry. In elements, we know that elements cannot be divided into simpler units, right? So same thing with morphemes. Morphemes are like the elements of English grammar. Morphemes cannot be divided into another basic smaller parts. So an example of morphemes are something like gun, G-U-N, boy, girl, etc. Now, the reason why these three are morphemes is that now you cannot, if you remove the N from gun, you have G-U, and it doesn't make any sense in English. If you remove the Y from boy, it becomes B-O. It doesn't make any sense. If you remove the L from girl, it becomes G-I-R. It doesn't make any sense. So those morphemes, you cannot separate them into another unit, or you cannot divide them. Now, then we have words. And a word is defined as a combination of two or more morphemes. Example of word is what? Guns. G-U-N-S. Example of word is girls. G-I-R-L-S. And then we have fighter. Now, the reason why these are called words is that, now look at these guns. Now, if you remove the S, it still makes sense, right? You have gun. If you remove the S from guns, you have gun. If you remove the S from girls, you have girl. It's singular. You understand? So once you are able to remove a part of a word and it still makes sense, it is called a word. But once you cannot remove a part from these elements, like this morpheme G-U-N, if you remove the N, it doesn't make sense. But from word, a word is a combination of two or more morpheme. Then this fighter, if you remove the ER, you can see how fight, it still makes sense. So that is a word, not a morpheme. Now the next thing we'll talk about is phrase. And a phrase is a particle, is an element of sentence that does not have a finite verb. Now, example of phrases: the rich man. Now this example, the rich man, it is a phrase because there is no finite verb. And what is a finite verb? A finite verb is a verb that tells us the action and it tells us when the action is happening. So there's no verb in this sentence. So it doesn't even contain a verb, it doesn't contain a finite verb. So this is a phrase because there's no finite verb and it's not telling us when that action is taking place. So now we'll talk about clauses. And example of clause, a clause is defined as a particle or a part of a sentence that contains a finite verb, and it usually makes more sense than phrases. Example of clauses are the rich man wept. Now, if you have something like the rich man wept, now this sentence tells us what happened to the rich man. In the phrase, in the example before, we just had a rich man. What happened to the rich man? What happened to did he fall down? Did he buy something, or what happened? So that phrase doesn't give us sufficient information about the sentence. But in the case of clauses, it tells us who we are talking about, and it tells us what happened to that person. Now, in this example, say the rich man wept. Now we know that the rich man, we know what happened to him because he wept, he cried, right? So now, and this wept is the thing that distinguishes this clause from the sentence, from the phrase, because it makes the clause make more sense than the phrase, and it also adds additional information about the sentence or the clause we're talking about. So this wept on its own is known as a finite verb because it tells us what is happening, and when it tells us the tense, it gives us the tense of the action, it tells us when it's happening. It's the action has a past and it has a present. You understand? So this is a finite verb. Now, the last thing we're talking about is the sentence, and your sentence is basically the combination of your morpheme, your word, your phrase, your clause, and every other thing. And mind you, your sentence is like the house of your English language. Your morpheme is like the foundation, your word is like the brick, your phrases are like the walls, your clause are like the roofs, and then your sentence is like the entire building. So that is how you can visualize this, the grammatical structure in English. So now, example of sentence is that the rich man wept angrily. Now this is a sentence, and now we will now be talking about the part of the sentence. This is the sentence because it gives us much more information than the clause. The rich man wept. How did he weep? How did he weep? Was he weeping slowly? Was he weeping loudly? Was he weeping quietly? Was he weeping with shame? No, he was weeping angrily. So now we'll talk about the five basic parts of a sentence. So now let's do that. Now the five basic parts of a sentence are called SVCOA, and that is the sentence, the verb. SV, yes, that's the verb. Then we have the predicate, and the predicate is consisting of the verb, the complement, the object, and the adjunct. So those are the five basic parts of the sentence. So if we have the subject, the subject is who we are talking about here. Who are we talking about in this sentence? We're talking about the rich man, right? So this is the subject of the sentence. The rich man. What happened to the rich man? So that verb, SV, let me write it down. SVCOA. Those are the five basic parts of a sentence. Now we have the verb. The verb is wept. What happened to him? He wept, right? So this is the verb of the sentence. And now your complement. Your complement is the part of the sentence that tells you more about the subject or the object. Now your complement, there's no complement here in this sentence, but a complement is an optional part of the sentence. But the major parts of a sentence are the subject and the verb. But your complement, object, and adjunct, they are not compulsory, but they are essential to add meaning to your sentence. Now next we have object. Your object is like who is talking about, who is being talked about. Now your subject is that who is the subject of the sentence, while your object is who is being talked about. You understand? So now then we have your adjunct. Your adjunct is your description and your modification to your verb. So your adjunct tells you more about the action or what is going on in the sentence. Now in this sentence we have our adjunct is angrily, because our angrily tells us how he cried. It tells us that he did not cry slowly, he did not cry in shame, he did not cry loudly, but he cried what? Angrily. So that is the adjunct. Your adjunct is another particle of a sentence. So in summary, we have the subject as part of the sentence, we have the verb as part of the sentence, we have the object, we have the complement as part of the sentence, we have the object, then we have the adjuncts. So those you can form them into the mnemonic SVCOA. Those are the five basic parts of your sentence. So now let's move on to types of sentences. So there are four basic types of sentences. There are simple sentences, simple sentence, we have compound sentence, we have complex sentence, then we have compound complex. Now let me start from simple sentence. A simple sentence is a type of sentence that contains only one independent clause. So, and I forgot to add that there are two types of clauses. There's your independent clause and there's your subordinate clause. Now an independent clause is a clause that can stand on its own and that can make meaning in a sentence. Example of independent clause is that the rich man wept. Now example of subordinate or independent or dependent clause is because he was duped. So now if I form a sentence, the rich man wept because he was duped, my independent clause is the rich man wept, then my subordinate or dependent clause is because he was duped. So those two clauses, you can see that they both contain finite verb. In the first example, we have the finite verb is wept, then in the finite verb is duped, because it tells us the tense of the action. So now whether it was past or present or future. Now we'll talk about simple sentences. A simple sentence is a sentence that contains only one clause, and that clause will be a dependent clause. So an example of simple sentence is the rich man wept. So this example we have another clause. You will write it here again. That is the rich man wept is a simple sentence. Why? Because it contains only one clause. Next we'll talk about compound sentence. Compound sentences is a type of sentence that contains two independent clauses or main clauses. An independent clause is also known as a main clause. A dependent clause is also known as a subordinate clause. Now, an independent clause, if you have independent clause, two or more, connected by and, but, or, nor, etc. When you connect two or more independent clauses by coordinating conjunctions, you are forming a compound sentence. Now, when we have the rich man wept, we have the rich man wept and was angry. So now this is a combination of two clauses. The first clause is the rich man wept, and the second clause is he was angry. So when we combine them together, we say the rich man wept and was angry. That and is a coordinating conjunction. So now that is an example of compound sentence. Then next we talk about complex sentence, and the complex sentence consists of only one independent clause, but can contain one or more dependent clauses. So now, if we want to form a complex sentence, we will look for one clause, then we'll add one or more dependent clauses to it. So now, example of complex sentence is the teacher flogged him because he jumped the fence. Or let's even continue with our rich man, right? So if we continue with our rich man, we have the rich man wept because he was angry. You will say the rich man wept because he was angry. Now this is number one, this is example 2. Now this is a complex sentence because it contains an independent clause. Know that a complex sentence contains one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses, right? So a complex sentence has this: the rich man wept. That's our independent clause. Then because he was angry is our dependent clause. Because you cannot say, if I tell you that, even now, if I say because you are watching, it doesn't make sense. But if I say I am making this video because you are watching, so that combines together and makes more sense. You get? So English is just like combination of different parts of a house into the final building. So now, lastly, we talk about compound complex sentence. And a compound complex sentence is like a synthesis. It's like a synergy between your compound sentence and your complex sentence. Now, in your compound complex sentence, you have two or more independent clauses. Then you have one or more dependent clauses. So now, example of compound complex sentence is that the rich man wept and was angry because he was duped. You have something like the rich man wept and was angry because he was duped. Now this is our compound complex sentence because it contains two independent clauses. Because you know that a compound complex sentence will contain two or more independent clauses. So this one contains two independent clauses, and then it has one dependent clause. And our compound complex sentence will contain one or more independent clauses or subordinate clauses. So the rich man wept, that's the first independent clause. Then and was angry is the second independent clause. Then the last clause is dependent because he was duped. The rich man wept and was angry because he was duped. So that is our compound complex sentence. So other example of compound complex sentence are: your creditor came yesterday when you were not at home, but I was able to pay him. So that's a compound complex sentence. So now, this is all we have to cover in grammatical structure, and this is the fundamentals you need to know for your any examination you have to write in English language. So if you can master this simple thing on the board, yeah, I know that it's not really simple, but you need to understand it so that you can further your knowledge of English and you can be at the top of any examination you want to write. So thank you for watching, and good luck.